Well, hey, and welcome to Theology Matters Thursday. This week's question comes right out of the headlines. The big question is, was Jesus married? If you've seen the news this last week, this new little piece of papyrus you see here in this image came out. This is a scrap of papyrus that dates to the 4th century that contains the phrase where Jesus refers to his wife, quote unquote. And so it is brought to the question again, the idea of, well, does this prove, in fact, that Jesus actually had a wife? Now, this isn't a new question. A lot of people have debated this over the years. In recent history, you might remember Dan Brown and his Da Vinci Code book and movie that came out where Jesus was supposedly married to Mary Magdalene. It was very controversial, and it's this very sensational question where people try to demonstrate that, there's this juicy detail that Jesus was married that's been a secret, now is finally coming out. And so the question is, well, is that true? Is there any legitimacy to that? Well, no, there's not. There's the short answer. Let me explain why that is. Here's a couple pieces of evidence to think about. One, this papyrus was written more than 300 years after Jesus lived. So it claims to be an eyewitness account of something Jesus said. It's written as if this person overheard Jesus say this and then wrote it down. And obviously, Jesus hadn't been around for several centuries, and so that obviously couldn't have been the case. But two, the more important piece of evidence is that the Bible never mentions Jesus' wife. And so if Jesus had a wife, the Bible would have told us. You see, the Bible mentions a lot about Jesus' family. It talks about his mother, his adoptive father. It talks about his half-brothers and sisters, even his cousins. And so if Jesus had this very important human relationship, why would the Bible not have told us about it? And so again, there's no reason to believe, whether historically or biblically, that Jesus had a wife. But maybe here is the more scandalous question that I'd encourage you to think about a little bit. What if Jesus did have a wife? What if there was some piece of evidence that did in fact prove that Jesus was indeed married? Would that discredit the story of the Bible? Would it discredit Christianity and Jesus Christ? Well, see, the reason why most people like to ask that question is it's usually done by sort of liberals and skeptics who are trying to humanize Jesus or make him less than God, like he's just a regular guy, and or make him sinful. So try to demonstrate that if we can show that Jesus was married, certainly he couldn't have been God, and certainly he was a sinful person if he was engaged in marriage or sexual activity. Well, here's the truth about that. One is that God created marriage, and so it wouldn't have been weird for God to engage in something that he created. Marriage isn't some foreign thing. God created marriage. And two, the same thing goes with sex. Sexual relations within marriage are not sinful. So if Jesus did have a wife, if he was married, and even if he engaged in sexual relations with his wife, it wouldn't have been sinful in any way. And so even if Jesus had been married, it wouldn't make him less than God, and it wouldn't make him sinful. And this is important to know because Jesus is constantly under attack, and I think it's very important that we have an accurate biblical picture of who Jesus is and what he did for us. And the Bible clearly presents over and over again that Jesus was fully and completely God, and that he was completely sinless. And this is important because only as sinless God in the flesh, not a normal human being, but as God in the flesh who lived a perfect life, was he able to pay the price for our sin on the cross and earn our salvation. And that is what's hugely important. So I'd encourage you this week, as you think about this, to thank God for his willingness to humble himself and to come to this earth, live a perfect life, and die for our sin on the cross so that we could have salvation and the hope of eternal life. Thank God for that.